Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first Fall 2020 virtual executive speaker event. My name is Dr. Nicole Coppell, and I'm the MBA director. As many of you know, back in March, we had to cancel our in-person executive speaker event, which would have been our final executive speaker event of the 2019-2020 academic year. Instead of mourning our loss, we quickly pivoted and relaunched our executive speaker series as a virtual series. And rather than take a break from these events as we typically did each summer, we decided to offer these monthly throughout the COVID summer and now into our fall term. The response has been phenomenal. Not only are we attracting interesting, relevant, and timely executive speakers from around the country, including tonight's speaker from California, but we have been able to include so many more members of our Montclair State University community in our audience. In addition to our MBA and other School of Business students, we welcome tonight prospective students, alumni, faculty, staff, representatives from the School Advisory Board, and members of Feliciano Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation Meetup community in our audience. The format of this evening's session will be a presentation by Chuck Muth, followed by a Q&A session facilitated by our Associate Dean, Dr. Betsy Rossini. Thank you to everyone who provided questions for Chuck in advance, and we invite you to enter additional questions using the Q&A feature found on the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will do our best to have him answer as many of your questions as time permits. Once again, this has been a team effort on behalf of our MBA graduate program staff, Dean's Office, development officers, alumni relations, and the FS Bus technical team. And I want to thank everyone for their contributions. At this point, I have the honor of introducing Chad Brown, Director of Development for the Feliciano School of Business and a huge supporter of MBA and graduate program events. Chad will be introducing our featured speaker. Thanks. Here you go, Chad.
Thanks so much, Nicole. Well, this evening it's my great pleasure to introduce Chuck Muth, Chief Revenue Growth Officer at Beyond Meat. Chuck is a marketing and management graduate of Montclair State in the Feliciano School of Business. He also has an MBA in finance from Fairleigh Dickinson University. Chuck is known for his leadership in building and growing organizations that support rapid sales growth in the food and beverage industry. He says he is not an entrepreneur. He says he is skilled at translating the mission and vision of an entrepreneur into tangible and scalable results. In the world of business today, with entrepreneurship on so many people's tongues, I found this to be a fascinating insight from Chuck as we were preparing for tonight's presentation. Chuck comes from humble beginnings like so many of us at Montclair State. After earning his degree, he began his career as a route salesman for Coca-Cola. He grew his career in the beverage industry, eventually becoming a known leader in leading entrepreneurial ventures, making a name for himself by leading rapid growth of new product lines across markets. He attributes his work ethic and business acumen to Montclair State and his fellow students and faculty. His latest venture is leading a company called Beyond Meat. He joined the company in May 2017 and has helped to drive revenue growth by a multiple of 19, from $16 million in 2016 to almost $300 million in 2019. The company's products can be found today in approximately 111,000 retail, restaurant, and food service outlets in more than 83 countries across the globe. The company recently announced partnerships in China and also has launched a direct-to-consumer website. I took advantage of that website a couple of weeks ago and I hopped online, created a profile, and ordered a sampler box for myself. And I personally have now tried the breakfast sausages, brats, and used the crumbles in making my chili last week. And I have to tell you, it did not disappoint. They were delicious. Finally, I'll say that Chuck is a dedicated alumnus of the business school. He serves on our advisory board, He and his wife give back generously to the school. And in addition, he mentors our students in our sales program. And right now, currently is also a thought partner with us in thinking about how to grow and scale our business partnerships. Chuck, thanks so much for taking time out of your schedule for spending an hour with us tonight. And now I'll turn the microphone over to you.
Well, thank you, Chad. It was a very generous, just like I wrote it, it was a very generous launch. And I do want to thank you in particular for eating our products. We appreciate anybody who will do that. I'm going to share my screen now. Find the presentation. Okay. Well, there it is. Okay, so thank you all for having me today. Thank you for listening in. I'll try and make it as interesting as possible. It is an interesting story. I do want to begin with a little bit of a, and this is mainly for the students and maybe those that have recently graduated. I wanted to kind of take you through my humble beginnings, truthfully, and I think it'll give you encouragement that anything is possible in this amazing country we live in. Because if you could go back in time and see me when I was at Montclair State College at the time, you would recognize the person you see today.
Excuse me, Chuck, would you be able to switch your screen because we're seeing your presenter view instead of the full slide?
I can do that. Let me see.
Thank you.
Okay. Hang on.
I think you need to hit the button to over. Oh,
How's that?
Yep, yeah, click on that.
Okay. All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. As Chad mentioned, I actually grew up locally in Paterson, New Jersey. You know, I was very fortunate at a young age to have parents, although neither one of my parents went to college. In fact, my dad actually never even finished high school, but they were always very encouraging in about going on to greater education. That wasn't necessarily something everyone, at least in the neighborhood I grew up in, had aspired to do. Most went on to trade schools. So having that support was really terrific. As you already know, I went to Montclair State as an undergraduate, majoring in management and marketing. You know, I was a pretty average student, even going out of high school and into college. Montclair State, you know, I think I graduated with B minus, you know, cum, so it wasn't that I was a spectacular student or anything. But I did earn a lot of my roots from the university, and thoroughly enjoyed my time there. I commuted to school. I worked all through college and high school for that matter. I worked for a chain called Pantry Price Supermarkets, which is no longer around, but actually were fairly large in the 60s and 70s on the East Coast. And I actually thought when I graduated from the university that I would have a career there. I aspired to be, you know, maybe a department manager or maybe even a store manager someday. I mean, I didn't have these amazing ambitions. I get asked a lot if you could, you know, go back and tell your 20-year-old self something. I would say, hey, you know, anything is possible. But back then, candidly, you know, I just didn't have the confidence, I think, to go on. I mean, to even be a manager, maybe. So, but as luck would have it, or fate would have it, Pantry Price went out of business shortly after I graduated, which left me looking for another opportunity, and that opportunity came at Coca-Cola. Okay, and Coca-Cola was looking for truck drivers. And initially, I was hesitant because, you know, I'd been a college grad. I mean, driving a truck wasn't really what I was looking for. Until they told me it paid $10 an hour, time and a half after 8, and double time after 10. I know you're thinking $10 is not a lot of money, but back in the 70s, it was a lot of money. And so I took that job. I was very fortunate because I worked for somebody at the sales center I was at that went on to his own fame in the business. He was later president of the Canada Dry Company and then Dr. Pepper. And he saw something in me, frankly, I didn't see myself. And he brought me into management at a very young age. I was 25 possibly. And really gave me my start. And from there, I moved through the Coca-Cola ranks, working in the New York area. I did many things like a director of marketing. You know, I ran a sales center for them. And then in 1992, I went to a company called Seagram's. You may have heard of it. But they had a small non-alcoholic business called Seagram's Ginger Ale. And I went there as a region manager initially, and later moved up to the VP GM of that company until it was acquired by Coca-Cola Company in 2002. So I was back at Coca-Cola again. Shortly after, I was offered an opportunity to go to Philadelphia as the Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Philly Coke, which is an independent bottler based at the time in the Philadelphia area. And I did that for 5 years, living in a one-room apartment in Philadelphia while commuting back and forth from where I was living at the time, which was in Maryland. And then after those 5 years, I got a call from someone named Seth Goldman. Now, Seth Goldman was the founder of Honest Tea. They were based in Maryland, and he offered me an opportunity to come work with him. Coke had acquired an equity interest in the company and was introduced to me, and he asked me if I wanted to come to work for the company. To be honest with you, and this is one of the lessons we'll learn from this, is that I had to take a big pay cut to do it. It was a small company at the time, and I had a really good situation in Philadelphia, but I was living in a one-room apartment in Philadelphia, and my wife was anxious about me coming home. So ultimately, I made the decision to walk away from a bigger salary and take this position with a small company called Honest Tea. Honest Tea was later acquired by Coke, and then Coke asked me to coordinate or consolidate a bunch of small brands that they had buying at the time, brands like Zico coconut water, Illy coffee, and create this thing called Venture Emerging Brands, and it was really their commercial side of that company. Coke, like a lot of CPG companies that are struggling for growth, are looking at these smaller, fast-growing, typically health and wellness brands to expand their business. So, I was able to pull that system together. And in 2016, I actually retired from Coca-Cola at a little bit of a young age, but I was able to do it financially. And there's a lesson here too, in that just because you can do something financial doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And so I did retire from Coca-Cola in 2016, did some consulting work. And then one day in April or May, I got a call from Seth Goldman. Now, Seth Goldman was at the time not only the founder of Honest Tea, but he was also the chairman of this company called Beyond Meat. At the time, I really didn't know much about Beyond Meat. I knew about it, but didn't know much. But he asked me to come to lunch and try the product. So I met him in his Maryland home, and we had the Beyond Meat product. And I was shocked, as Chad was saying up front. It wasn't what I expected. I mean, I certainly have had plant-based products before, mushroom burgers or bean burgers and things like that. But this was something different. I mean, this tasted a lot like a regular hamburger made out of beef, but it was made out of plants. So I was pretty excited about that. And he said, look, he goes, the founder of this company, his name is Ethan Brown, and he'll be in Washington, D.C. This Friday, and would love to meet you. He's heard about you, and I'd like to introduce you to him. And I said, sure. So I went down to D.C., met him at his hotel, and we walked around D.C. on a beautiful early May spring day, and we talked about how horrible the Jets were as a football team, because I'm a big Jets fan. And we talked about the weather, we talked about philosophy, we talked about life. We really didn't talk about business. But at the end of that hour, we got back to his hotel, and he handed me a piece of paper and said, Chuck, he goes, I want you to move out to California with me, and we're going to change the way the world sees food. And after discussing it with with my wife, we ultimately made the decision to head out to California to join this very small company at the time. It was $60 million, as Chad said. Company had 2 salespeople, 3 marketers, I think 3 people in accounting. It's a super small company. But it had a lot of potential, and I saw that potential, and it was a pretty exciting opportunity at the time. So anyway, I joined them in 2017, in May, and so that's my really quick version of how I went from Patterson, New Jersey, to a truck driver for Coca-Cola to a C-suite position. I did want to share some thoughts about it though too, in terms of how I did it. There's honestly, for me at least, I never really thought I honestly just focused on what I was doing. I was just always, I was a grinder, and I just grinded out every job. Every job I was at, I'm very competitive. I wanted to be the best at that job. I dug a lot of holes, basically. I did what I had to do. And each one of those opportunities led to something else. And so it took a long way. As you can see, it's a long, windy road. But along that road, I was very fortunate to have worked with some amazing mentors. people sometimes say it is luck and or maybe it's opportunity, but having the right skills at the right time and then an opportunity comes, you have an opportunity to take advantage of that. I also work, I say this a lot, is that, I try to use my compass as north. I mean, when I have to check myself, I always go back to what's the right thing to do. And it may not be the right thing for me at that time, but I've always done the right thing for the company and the right thing to do in general. So I've always defaulted to that. Also, I work with my management style. We talked about how successful I've been, and mainly it's because I've surrounded myself with good people. And there's no secret to that. I mean, you bring good people on. I work in an empowered system. I let my management team make decisions. I want them to make decisions, mainly because as much as I want to believe I'm the smartest guy in the room, and maybe I am, maybe I'm not, but they're closer to the decision. They know what's going on. They have more information than I have, and they can make a better decision. I have to trust that decision. Now, we do have an accountability system as well. You make the decision, you own it, and you're accountable to it. So basically, that's the way I have operated, and it's worked out incredibly well for me. And as Chad said again, I've been put in a lot of very good situations, and the least of which is, of course, is Beyond Meat. Okay, I know a lot of you want to hear about Beyond Meat. So this is the Beyond Meat story, or at least where we are today. First of all, but before I begin, I want to talk a little bit about plant-based meats and what's going on today. I think most of you probably heard of Beyond Meat, I assume, or at least have heard of what's going on in that category. So why plant-based? Consumers are looking at things like their health. They're looking at sustainability. There's a lot of information out there today. This information is broadly available, and particularly among young people today. You can see game changers, or What the Health, or Fork Over Knives, or many of the information that's out there today. A lot of consumers today, 69%, in fact, are looking at food as something that is appealing to them. There are a lot more sources of protein today you can put in food. You can see we've circled pea protein. That's the one we primarily use, although we do use other protein sources as well, but there are many others in addition. Some stats on this. Okay, 38% of consumers today are trying to add more plant-based foods in their diet. 51% have actually tried it. 26% actually have a plant-based meal once or more a week, and 22% love food that's vegan. Now you'll note in this, and I'll talk about this a little bit, we don't use the word vegan. Our products are vegan actually, but we don't lean forward with that word vegan. We use the word plant-based because vegan can sometimes be viewed negatively by consumers. It comes along with bad taste. So we avoid words like vegan or vegetarian, although we are a very vegan product, obviously. So who are our consumers? Well, we do appeal to a broad base of consumers. But the most important base is really that Gen Z and the millennials who are much more open to trying these type of products, and they have a lot of information at their hands right now. And so we're getting a big part of our audience are Gen Z and millennials. And the good thing with that is that they like to talk about it. And so we had, in 2019 alone, we had 100 billion earned media hits globally. So our brand is being talked about quite a bit. And again, it's a lot of young people driving that conversation. Of course, families, people who are looking to buy healthier foods for their family are big constituents, and anybody who's a health conscious consumer. I'm going to add to that as well. As consumers, as baby boomers in particular are aging, I'm going to take myself as an example. We know that we're feeling our vulnerability. We want to live forever, but we're learning that you have to take care of yourself. And so whether it's exercise or eating better, you have to introduce that into your lifestyle if you want to live a healthy, longer life. Having products like ours, plant-based products, is a part of that. It's part of that conversation. So we're getting a lot of older consumers as well. So what are the driving factors today? We talked about up front, health and wellness. Health is a big part of it. People are concerned about their health and gravitating these type of products. Consumers are willing to pay a little extra for it too. It's unfortunate that it is higher cost, but consumers are used to it being a higher cost, or at least willing to buy products at that cost. Branding plays a big role. Brands that consumers can trust, that goes in any industry, but in ours as well. But at the end of the day, if we're going to get consumers to consume our product, we've got to win on the taste side. So we spend a lot of energy around developing the taste of the products. And it's a relatively low bar to get a vegan or vegetarian consumer to buy a plant-based meat. It's a much higher bar when you're targeting meat reducers or flexitarians. So we know that taste is a very important criteria, and we work very hard on it. Okay, let me talk about Beyond Meat now. It actually was started in 2009 by Ethan Brown, who I mentioned. Ethan had actually worked in the alternative energy space. He's very much a mission individual leader. He actually is a vegan himself, but he was in the energy space, alternative energy space, and had been thinking about the global problems that we have today, things around health and wellness, but also environmental impact or land resource, and decided that there was a gap, and that if you're going to change the world, okay, you're not going to get there by getting vegan and vegetarian to eat less meat. You're going to get there by convincing consumers who might consider eating less meat to actually do that, but without the sacrifice. So he felt that there was an opportunity to invest make serious investments into the innovation around that space, and to actually begin to create better products. So we're very much an innovation-driven company. Today we have 150 food scientists and culinary folks. Many of them had worked previously in things like cancer research. So the pitch for them is basically, instead of helping to cure disease, why don't you work on actually helping to prevent disease? So that's a big part of what we're doing as a mission. We're very consumer focused. We ask our consumers what they're looking for, and we try to respond to that. So you'll see, I'll talk a little bit more about this. We are very careful about what we use as our ingredients, and trying to avoid things like GMOs. We've had an interesting past couple of years. You're never going to be in a fast-growing company like this without all kinds of crazy things going on. So I have a quick video I want to share with you. Hopefully it'll come through. If it doesn't, I'll turn it off. But it's a quick video. It's titled "What It's Like to Be in the Eye of the Storm."
I'm blown away.
It tastes like meat.
We are eliminating agriculture's biggest bottleneck, the animal.
Dad, do you like the burgers?
Yeah, I can't tell the difference.
NASDAQ, here we go. Beyond Meat is going public.
I said I'm going to start eating better. I already eat good, but now I'm gonna get on this plant-based food kick. So I'm gonna tell you, man, this plant-based movement is real.
What's it called? Wow, that looks real. It's Beyond Meat. It's not real meat. Here I go.
And I've got everyone trying the Beyond Meat burger and sausage, which are incredible. Once you go Beyond Meat, you ain't going back.
Feel good, live good, and it tastes good. Beyond Meat, baby.
Well, anyway, Snoop Dogg's my favorite, and he's actually nearby us. So we get incredible enough in our office. We get visitors from celebrities almost every week. It's pretty incredible. So anyway, we've had this rapid growth, and it's been a little bit manic sometimes. But anyway, we are a mission company at the end of the day. Certainly, we're a publicly traded company today. I think our current value is somewhere around $7 or $8 billion. But at the end of the day, the core of our company, the soul of our company, is really a mission company. And most people, almost everyone who works there, believes in that mission. And some of the things that we are working on are things like improving human health. I mean, our products are, we're trying to make more nutritious products, but also things that have more protein, less fat, less sat fat, more has fiber and iron, no cholesterol. Improving climate change. Our products are more sustainable. We emit 90% less greenhouse gases than beef, for instance, 80-20 beef. We actually did that analysis with the University of Michigan. So it was peer-reviewed analysis. Resources. Global resources are under stress today, as you can imagine. The reason Amazon forests are being burned down is for more fields for cattle growth. So we know that we need longer-term solutions. So we are a more efficient product as well. Our beef uses 99% less water, 93% less land, and 46% less energy than animal meat. And then, of course, animals themselves. We kill 66 billion animals a year for food. If anybody has watched the show Earthlings, don't do it on when you're eating, for sure. We all don't want to really hear where our food comes from. We know it's there, but it's something you don't want to think about, but it is there. So we get a lot of criticism about the fact that we're a processed food. So I want to address that today. We are a processed food, but the way we processed the food is really important. So we know that the animal itself is made up of 5 core ingredients or elements. It's amino acids, it's lipids, trace minerals, carbohydrates, and most significantly, water, just like our own bodies. And we know that all those can be replicated through plants. It's just about finding the right combinations and the right way of creating that to make that come to life. Our inputs are 100% from plants. We don't use chemicals, artificial ingredients. So we're using things like peas or coconuts or beets, no GMOs, no artificial anything. So, and then the process itself is no different than making pasta. It's really about heating, cooling, and pressure, stitching those ingredients together to form a product that ultimately comes out tasting from a sensory perspective very much like its animal counterpart. So that's really the science behind this. And so we're trying to, again, we have 3 core objectives in our innovation. The first is to make products that from a sensory perspective come as close as possible to an animal meat from a taste, aroma, texture, a color transition. Secondly is to improve the nutritionals. So there are some nutritional gaps we have today. We believe very strongly it's more nutritional than animal meat, but we are working on things like reducing sodium, reducing fat. So there are a lot of work underway to improve the nutritionals. And then finally, cost. Okay, it is more expensive than animal meat, but in theory it shouldn't be because you're eliminating the animal from the equation in supply chain. So therefore, making a product that costs less than animal meat is certainly theoretically possible, and we think will happen within the next 5 years or so. And as I mentioned, the ingredients. I mean, our proteins are made up of things like mung bean or fava bean or pea or rice or sunflowers. So we're using all plant-based inputs. Same thing with minerals. Carbohydrates are potato, methylcellulose, which is a plant derivative. Fats are coming from cocoa butter, coconut oil, sunflower. And then our flavoring and stuff is things like beet extracts and other juice extracts, as well as other natural flavors. So we're using, we want to be extremely careful about what we're putting into our products. There's been a lot of misinformation out there. So we're exceptionally careful about what we're actually adding to our ingredient panels to create these nutritious products. Beyond has grown, as I said, very quickly. I think Chad said some of these numbers up front. We're now 112,000 retail and food service outlets globally. We're the #1 refrigerated items sold in supermarkets. We're in 85 countries. We've got over 150 food scientists and culinary on our team today. We're adding to that on a regular basis. It's a serious effort on our part to find better solutions. We've had tremendous growth. We've got great repeat rates, and we've got great penetration, 40% increase in household penetrations this year alone. So growing quite a bit. I don't have a slide for this, but I want to talk a little bit about some of the strategy we used to actually accomplish this. When we first came out, our target audience was never vegan or vegetarian. We love the fact that they consume our products and they talk a lot about it. But our consumer focus from the very beginning was not that consumer. It was really the meat reducers or flexitarians. And to do that, again, we had to create products that they would enjoy, but we also merchandise that way as well. So if you go to your local supermarket, you will likely find it in the meat section. Now that had really, in any scale, it had never been done before. And I remember not that long ago, within the last year and a half, we might have one facing on there Beyond Burgers. Today, if you go to your local supermarket, you'll see a pretty massive section with a lot of competitors there. But it wasn't that long ago that didn't exist. So it's a brand new category. So it's very disruptive. That was a very disruptive approach at the time for us. And we had a lot of retailers who said no. A lot of national retailers refused to put it in that section, wanted to put it in the vegetarian section where they've always put it. Problem is our flexitarian consumer doesn't shop that section. They shop the meat counter. So it was imperative for us to put it in that meat case. And so we said no to those retailers. Those retailers that wouldn't put it in that section, we said no to. And I'm talking about some very large multinational retailers. Fortunately, there were a few that said yes. Kroger, Safeway in particular, Wegmans, who said yes. And once they said yes and were successful, obviously others followed. But we waited that out, in some cases as much as 2 years, because we firmly believe that to be successful in this business long term, we had to be in that meat case. Today, almost without exception, you'll find us in that meat case in the supermarkets. And it's been a big part of what's helped make this brand very successful. International. We knew that there was a lot of, early on, we weren't really thinking about international, but there were a few partners who approached us about doing it. We partnered with them. But today, if you look around the world, places like Europe, this is a very hot space in Europe right now. Asia, Canada is one of the best markets. In fact, I think per capita are the best market in terms of plant-based consumption. Asia, getting into China at the right time. All the economies are shut down with the food service much slower than it was before. China is opening up. So being in places like Starbucks in China, being in KFC and Pizza Hut, which we are in China, was very important to our continued growth going forward. So we were very fortunate to, again, being at the right place at the right time. But we also had the right disciplines to get us to where we are today. And this is more recent data. The last 4 weeks, you can see the category itself is growing 54%. At least some of that is COVID related, because we know that consumers are becoming much more aware of what's going on at the factory farms and how that's occurring. And so our category, and of course, a lot of competitors coming in. So the category itself is continuing to grow. We're growing at more than twice the category growth. So our share is actually 1 in 5 plant-based meats today purchased is a Beyond Meat, which is amazing because we don't have that many items. So we're number 1, as I mentioned earlier, in refrigerated. We're number 1 in food service. We have 55% aided awareness. We have 24% unaided awareness, by the way, in the brand. And again, we have a lot of ambassadors, and we also have some sponsorships. In fact, one of those sponsorships is the New Jersey, well, not New Jersey anymore, but the Brooklyn Nets. So it's one of my teams that I actually met my wife at the Nets game. So we are a sponsor of the Nets team as well as the Lakers. So our brand story. So what we're trying to do today is really explain to consumers so that they know, why we're doing what we're doing, why we think this is important. But importantly also is how we're doing it, that we're not taking shortcuts, that there is a lot of misinformation out there today. Some of it's being spread by, I call it black ops, but basically, you have to use your imagination, but the industries that don't wish us well. And they don't outright lie, but they mislead. And that when you do mislead, then obviously rumors start. So we're trying to spell that by being very transparent about what we're doing, why we're doing, what ingredients we have, and that we're not doing things like putting in synthetic ingredients or GMOs or other chemicals. It's not part of who we are as a company, and we're not going to do that as we go forward. And then ultimately ask consumers to go beyond. We have, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of celebrities, a lot of cultural trendsetters. the interesting thing about this, and by the way, these ambassadors have been a big reason why we've been able to get the message out to consumers. One thing I will say about the ambassadors is that they are all investors in the company. We don't give them the shares; they actually buy the shares. So there are occasions we may pay them to do particular events, but many of them do it for free, and have been big supporters of the movement. Many of these are vegetarian or vegans in their own right, just been amazing to work with these folks. And we do get to see them once in a while at our office. They come by, so it's nice. And before I show you the last slide, I wanted to make a quick appeal out there. We know today, I won't get political, I promise, but we know today that the world environmentally is changing before our eyes. I mean, it'd be hard to be in denial of that. The forest fires, I live in California now, and the forest fires out here, last weekend you couldn't even go out, you couldn't breathe. And we've always had forest fires on the West Coast because it's very dry out here. But this year is extraordinary. The weather is so dry. If you look at the hurricanes in the south, the warming of the water is causing massive hurricanes now, coming out quite a few of them. It's easy to look for others for help, but we can all do our own part. And this is why we are a mission company. We believe that we all have a part in this. We can all play a role. Eating less meat is clearly one of those things. Meat consumption is a big driver of greenhouse gases, and so take it on your own. My appeal to you is you don't have to become a vegetarian or vegan. I'm not, but I have reduced my intake of animal meat by quite a bit. So whether it's our products or other products out there, my appeal is to take that in consideration, consider what you're eating. And I'm going to play one last video for you.
What if we took this cow off the table and just made friends with her? What if this guy grew more plants and we got protein from his beans, brown rice, and peas instead and made a great burger? What if burgers got healthier and the food we love had no cholesterol? What if we put it in our carbs, on our menus, on our grills? What if your grandpa ate it? And your whole team? And his whole team? What if it didn't even stop there and we used less land and energy? Put less greenhouse gases into the air? What if it was already happening? What if just taking the animal out of the meat made us and our planet healthier? What if we all go beyond?
Okay, and that's it for me today. I guess I'm ready for some Q&A questions if anybody has any.
Thank you, Chuck. And Chuck, before we begin the questions, I just want to say, I'm not sure if you know this, but one of the dining venues on the Montclair campus is actually serving Beyond Meat. And
all right.
While you were speaking, we had several comments from people who've actually tried it. So, it's come home to roost. It's you should be proud.
I am proud. Thank you.
So let's go right to our questions. We have several. Here's the first one. As an entrepreneurial company, could you speak about the challenges of managing growth? Many of our entrepreneurship students are very interested in that aspect of companies like Beyond Meat.
Yeah, well, Chad said up front that I'm not an entrepreneur. I say that all the time, and I say it because I think entrepreneurs are special people. I think the ability to invest everything you have into a project or a brand or a service is pretty special. Not many people can do that and do that successfully. I think I have worked with a lot of entrepreneurs. I've been very blessed to have worked with some very good entrepreneurs, thankfully, and we've always had really good relations. Mainly because I respect what they do. They're not always right and they need help, but. And I hope that goes both ways. So we've been able to work together. And so I think hiring, if you don't have the skill sets, hire people around you that do. And but be involved, be engaged. It really is about digging ditches, I hate to say it. I mean, it's about being engaged and grinding it out because you're going to be very involved in all aspects of the business. And as far as fast growth, I would say the big thing about that is communication. You've got to communicate cross-functionally. If you're in sales or marketing, you've got to be talking to your supply chain every day, making sure that you're fully connected in terms of making sure you can meet the supply and demands that are out there. So, yeah.
And speaking of supply chain, can you talk about the impact of global warming on agriculture and how that could impact your supply chain?
Well, I mean, I don't have a background to talk about what global warming will be to agriculture. I know that it's potentially catastrophic, and those weather changes will be meaningful over time. Maybe not in my lifetime, I don't know, but I think you're seeing a lot of it today. We do use peas and things like that, which are regenerative. They're a good crop. They're good crops to have, and they're very efficient crops. Meaning they don't a lot of research. I will talk about something too about that. You know, currently today, 30% of the world's land mass is used for animal production, and 25% of fresh water around the world. That's not sustainable. In 30 years, the demand for meats is expected to grow by 80% as countries, and population growth, also countries like China and India are eating more meat. You know, you've got to recognize that that's not sustainable. We've got to get better solutions, and plant-based is one of those solution options. Cell-based is another one.
Thank you. My question is, this is from one of our viewers. What are some marketing tools that you're using to make the information more digestible to meat eaters and to consumers that answer the question of chemistry of the product? That question the chemistry of the product.
Yeah, the chemicals of the product. So we've always, I think the nice thing today is you don't need to go through traditional marketing channels. We've never done a lot of TV or radio or billboards and things like that. We've done a lot of social media, a lot of outreach, which means we can have some direct conversation with our consumers and our fans. We do have a lot of fans. We have over 1 million Instagram followers, for instance. So we do a lot of that work. And then as far as the misinformation out there, you know, we're doing that last video you saw as part of that. You know, we're going to get out there and we're going to spend more on marketing as we go. Early on, we invested mostly in R&D. Now we're investing more in marketing. So we're trying to get the word out there and trying to get through some of the misinformation and some of the things that are happening today. And, you know, we also don't want to be associated with companies that have things like GMOs or synthetic ingredients. So we want to make sure that people understand that we're not using those, and we don't want to be painted with the same brush with other brands out there.
Thank you. Here's another question. Will you be able to go from more meat types like steak, pork chops, spare ribs, I guess beyond beef and chicken?
Well, we already have pork out there with our sausage that Chad mentioned he ate. We have sausage, dinner sausage. We also have breakfast sausage, pork, and then we have beef. We have ground beef. We have crumbles. We have our burgers, of course. We did it. We have done. You may have heard about. We did KFC. We did a KFC chicken, and I can't speak forward information because we are public, but I can say that if there is an animal product out there, we are going to be looking at it and looking at it very seriously. So more to come.
Good to know. How is Beyond Meat responding to competitors like Purdue that have entered into the plant-based meat market?
Yeah, actually, I heard about Purdue, but Purdue's hasn't been. Tyson has done something in chicken and you know, JBS and Maple Leaf with their Light Life brand, Hormel and Cargill. I mean, I don't think there's a meat company out there that's not experimenting or going into the space today, or certainly most of the major ones. Hey, you know, we're not, like, you won't hear us say negative things about our competitors or even about meat. I mean, we don't go out openly say that. But you know, I think that there is some authenticity in the space that comes with not being part of you know, that agenda. I mean, I know there was one of our competitors who's owned by a meat company ran a very negative ad recently about our brand at Impossible, and the consumer backlash that they got was unbelievable. I mean, bad. I mean, because they were called out as a meat company. That's, you know, so I think you got to be careful. Again, I think there's a lot of room for more competition. I think competition could be good over time because it'll help grow the category.
Great. Does Beyond Meat make the connection with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and why not?
Yeah, well, actually, in the video you may have seen Ethan Brown receive a UN award for Friends of the Earth. So we are connected to the UN. I don't know specifically about that program, but we are connected to the UN. We did win an award last year, or it might have been 2018, I'm not sure, but as Friends of the Earth. So we did, it was recognized in New York, and Ethan Brown, you saw in the video, received that award.
You mentioned your international growth and the, you're pushing to other companies. The question is, how do you penetrate markets in those other countries?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting story, because it was actually almost by accident. I mean, we had a couple of investors or people we knew who knew somebody who knew us who were interested. And at the time, this is 2017, maybe 2018 early. I didn't have a position that I was that interested in it. I knew we had a big opportunity in the US and in Canada, but outside of that, I wasn't that focused on the international. But a few of these partners worked out really well. I mean, they took the brand, they helped develop it over in each country. We made some mistakes too, by the way. There were 3 or 4 that we had to terminate because we weren't on the same page in terms of what we wanted to accomplish. But it's only been in the last year or so to begin taking international very seriously. Now we're placing people in these countries, and we're in 84 countries. We're in Australia, we're in Asia, we're in South Africa, we're in the Middle East, we're in Europe. China, I mentioned, even Mexico, Brazil. We just launched in Brazil. So we are actually beginning to pay a lot more attention to, and we're adding people to these markets. But and that's still a work in progress. I think there's a long way to go in terms of developing that international market.
Can you talk about the particular challenges of working with a visionary like Ethan?
Well, I think most successful entrepreneurs are visionary in their own right. They have an idea that they believe in. I mean, Ethan, like Seth, I worked with Seth Goldman too. Seth Goldman's very much, he's Honest Tea is one of the largest organic tea companies in the world. I mean, so look, they are special in good ways, but also in challenging ways sometimes. I'd be very transparent about that. I'm very fortunate. I have a very good relationship with both of them, and Mark and Paul and others. I'm now on the board of 5 Organics, and it's another entrepreneur. So, it's you have to be patient sometimes, and you want to listen, because they make the impossible possible, and you have to respect that. So what I think is, I always have to check myself to make sure I'm open to their ideas, because sometimes they're brilliant and sometimes they're not brilliant. Sometimes you have to say, I think it's a bad idea. I think we need to rethink this. You just have to do it respectfully. And so it is challenging. It can be challenging. Some of the things they come up with are, I will say a few definites. Okay, most of them are the internal optimists. So like, the funny story I have with Seth Goldman when I went to Honest Tea, they were come up with these crazy numbers. They were going to triple the business every year or something. And, I'm more disciplined, and I would, literally map out a plan of availability and velocity and things like that, things that you fundamentally do. And I remember going to him one year and saying, look, we're going to grow 30% next year. And he goes, I think we're going to grow 50%. I go, okay, sure. Okay, well, here's my numbers. Where are yours? And he didn't have numbers. So, basically said, oh, okay, I get your point. So, I mean, that is the challenge. I think in working with entrepreneurs, they're very, very optimistic, usually.
Right. You've said that hiring good people is one of the reasons for your success. How do you know when someone is the right fit for your team?
Yeah, I can answer that too, because it's never 100%. But I have always looked for individuals that I use it's kind of a military thing, but like I don't want people that are going to hold the fort down. I mean, there are plenty of jobs available for people in big companies that are going to sit back and do their job and do it well and keep the ball rolling. Okay, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for individuals who had to make their own space, who create on their own. I told you I work in a powered system. You can't do that waiting for somebody to tell you what to do. You've got to make it happen on your own. So I'm very deliberate in terms of trying to hire people that fit that model, and I have been very successful in doing exactly that. One of the ways we do that, and you probably teach that there, and I'm sure other companies use it, it's called the STAR format or targeted selection. It's when you actually ask, I do one today actually, when you actually ask the interviewee a question that makes them answer in a way, it's not a question that says, oh, what are you good at? And tell me things you like about yourself or things you don't like. It's questions like, tell me something you actually did, and how did you do it? And what were the results of that? And the reason you want to ask that question is that they begin to talk through how they think about it. And then you can glean from that how they actually, are they being progressive in their thinking? Or are they just, keeping the ball going?
Wow. So you have said that empowerment on the one hand and accountability are the 2 pillars of your management style. Can you talk a little bit about how that style evolved for you? How did you you learn that?
Yeah, I don't actually know. And I've worked in my career, I've worked for amazing leaders that have done amazing things, and I've worked for some really poor leaders that I learned from as well. Not always the good things, but I learned. And I don't know. I think that I think it became logical for me. I would say it has evolved and it's gotten much more defined for me, but it did evolve over time. And so I don't remember exactly the point when I began to realize this, but the truth is that I think this applies to most people. I think when, especially people who I'm looking for, the type of people, when they have decision rights, when they feel like they have true decision rights, when they're not being micromanaged, it's hard for leaders, and myself included, to take a step back. But you have to discipline. It takes some discipline to do that. But the end result of that is going to be a better, more engaged associate, and that's what we've tried to do. We have a lot of metrics. I mean, this is not without accountability. There are a lot of metrics we agree on. But once those metrics are, and I'm a consultant basically. I did call me. I'll tell you, my direct reports call me at least once a day, usually multiple times a day. And we have conversations. They ask my opinion. They want to know what I think, and I give it to them, and then they make the decision. I do veto things, sure, but I try not to do that.
Right. You mentioned that you were mentored along the way, during your journey. How did you find those mentors, or how did they find you?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of them. There were people I worked with. I'll even name names. Jim Smith was this guy that went on to president of Canada Dry. Pat Brannigan, who's passed away, was a very big mentor for me early in my career at Coca-Cola. Ron Wilson in Philadelphia. Seth Goldman and Ethan Brown, even. So as well. So I think that they just came into my life at some point along the journey, and there were people I respected and had something to offer, and I fortunately built very good relationships with them, and I learned a lot from them.
Right. This is a related question. How did you bring your big company, your Coca-Cola experience, when you arrived at a smaller company like Beyond Meat? What were you able to bring with you, and what did you have to let go of?
Well, this is not just me. I talked to Ethan a lot about this. It's not. Small entrepreneurial companies are not the right place for a lot of big company people, and we have hired some that have not frankly worked out as well. If you're going to hire big company folks, they better come in with an understanding that what they're coming into isn't what they had before. Everything's not wired. Everything's not set up. All those resources you had before are not going to be available for you. So if you come in with that expectation, you're going to actually help write that script. You're going to help that wire. You're going to take that blank piece of paper and help wire that company and build those resources and those things that are needed. You can actually have a big impact on that. Then you're going to come in, then you'll be successful. And so I will say that early on, Beyond Meat had to shift very quickly. We didn't have, especially in supply chain, the people that knew how to scale quickly. We had to bring that talent in. That talent did not exist in our company. We brought them in from places like Nestle, but maybe the most important was we brought in someone from Amazon, and Amazon's certainly a growth company, so big company, but a growing company. So they knew how to scale very quickly. So they were really instrumental. So yeah, you definitely, unfortunately, as you grow and you get bigger, you're going to need to bring in a little bit different level of talent than you might have had early on when you built a company.
And wouldn't it be amazing if you woke up one day and Coca-Cola had acquired Beyond Meat? Come full circle.
Yeah, I could say something, but I'm not allowed to. But I think that you never know, because I've actually been purchased by Coke 3 times. I was purchased when I was at Philly Coke. They brought that bottling system.
Right.
At Seagram's, they brought that, and when I was at Honesty, they brought that. So I've been purchased by Coke 3 times. So
yeah, I know.
When I leave here, I'm going to go someplace that wants to sell the Coke and all.
All right, we have time for one more question, and this is a little bit of a softball question, but this comes from one of our faculty members. How can the faculty and students at Montclair State help Beyond Meat in their quest?
Well, I think good question. I don't necessarily have an answer for that other than consume our products, man. So if you go to that cafeteria, try it. It's not going to replicate the exact sensory of an animal meat. And by the way, some people think it's better. They taste better, but we are working on it. We have a 2.0 version out now. We have a 3.0 version coming next year. So we'll continue to make those improvements, but it's going to do some of the other things. It's going to be a healthier option for you. It's going to be better for the environment, and it doesn't require killing animals. So there's plenty of reasons to at least give it a shot and put it in part of your diet, if not all the time.
Right. And on that note, I want to thank you, and I'm going to hand it back to Nicole Coppell, who will officially thank you. And it's been great, Chuck. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Betsy.
It really, I reiterate Betsy's comments. This really has been a phenomenal virtual executive speaker. Not only did we love hearing about your career path and really hearing that you started out sitting in the same seats that so many of our students are sitting in, and making it and succeeding the way you have is really incredible. It's incredible. Thank goodness for your success, but also for, you know, their potential and the future that they have lying ahead. I can't thank you enough. And of course, I think we all watch this and everyone's excited to go out, and if you haven't already, to try Beyond Beef, Beyond Meat, and all of the products that are promised to be out there. I know personally, I've enjoyed it. I was sharing with the group that I had once was at a restaurant trying to eat vegetarian. I ordered myself a Beyond Burger and got very upset, called over the waitress and said, "You misled me. I ordered this, you made a mistake." And in that case, it really was a Beyond Meat, and I didn't even realize because it tasted so much like meat at the time. So it's something that I think many people probably experience and are surprised at how good they really are. So again, thank you. And I agree with your comment to tell everyone to at least give it a try. So at this point, actually, Roger, I know there's a slide we want to share with you all to throw us to thinking ahead to our next virtual speaker, which is going to be on Tuesday, October 20th. So please save the date. We're going to have Miss Carla Harris, who's the Vice Chairman and Managing Director at Morgan Stanley, be our featured speaker. So we look forward to you joining us next month at this event. So again, mark your calendars. Thank you everyone for coming this evening. We hope you enjoyed it, and best of luck, and stay safe and stay healthy. Take care.